Good evening y bienvenidos to Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. I'm Alex Hernandez of Noticias Univision Chicago, which airs every weekday morning at 5 and 6. Thank you for joining us this evening. On the show tonight, the holidays can be a difficult time for people trying to stay sober. We'll talk about overcoming those stigmas within Latino communities. We talk also to a digital content creator who has made a career reviewing food. The Open Center for the Arts in Little Village kicks off a lineup of traditional Mexican holiday events next week. A call for Latino and Spanish-speaking volunteers to help local kids learn about birdwatching.
Art is responding to life.
And muralist Pablo Serrano on how public art makes its home in Chicago. All that coming up, but our first story tonight, how to support loved ones who are practicing sobriety during the holidays. That's right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
The holidays can be a stressful time for a lot of folks, but for people in recovery for addiction and who are trying to maintain sobriety, the added stressors of the holidays can put them at risk of relapse. The 2018 National Survey on Drug Use and Health finds that just over 7% of Hispanic Americans have a substance use disorder. That's similar to the rate for the total population. However, studies also show that Hispanic adults who do drink tend to drink more heavily than other ethnicities. Joining us now with more are Omar Corro, Senior Director of Operations at Rincon Family Centers, Craig Dara, therapist at Metropolitan Family Services, and Evelyn Delgado, manager of the Medication Assisted Treatment Program at Esperanza Health Centers. I want to welcome all of you, but I want to start with you, Evelyn. Thank you for being here. What are you hearing from patients who are being in recovery during the holidays?
Hi, Alex. Thank you for having us. So the holidays can definitely be something that's very stressful for the clients that we serve, especially those in the Hispanic or Latinx community. A lot of things come up, feelings, grief. A lot of our clients don't have family support, so having these holidays come up that are traditionally kind of centered around family can be very difficult for them.
Evelyn, what are some triggers, for example, for people who are in recovery or trying to maintain sobriety might have?
Yeah, so even if they do have family that are supportive of them, oftentimes our festivities include alcohol, and that can be a trigger for somebody that's battling alcohol use disorder. Being around that can be very triggering for people, and a lot of times our clients are not able to kind of communicate their needs to their family because it's so widely accepted and expected at these kinds of festivities, and it's not seen as something that can be dangerous.
Definitely. Craig, what do you think might be, or what might being in recovery look like for different people?
Well, it's going to vary depending on why they're in recovery, I would think. And like Evelyn said, the holidays are tough for anybody in recovery, and they're tough for people who aren't in recovery. Imagine being in recovery. You have the holiday parties where people are celebrating and drinking. The stressful family dynamics might be a little stretched. Think about being in recovery and a person asks you, hey, what have you been up to lately? They haven't seen you in a while. That's a tough question to answer. Busy schedules during the holidays make it difficult. Sometimes people might let their guards down. People have a problem with drugs, meaning that they're not exercising as much. They're not going to meetings. They're not calling their sponsors. So whatever it may be, there's clearly stats will show there's I think almost a 70% increase in alcohol sales the last 2 weeks of December. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think the stress and anxiety builds up and it hurts.
Omar, what impact do you think, cultural and family traditions in the Latino community might have in someone's journey to recovery?
Alex, thank you once again for having us. I agree with what Craig and Evelyn said. I do feel like the lack of education from family members is a big issue. And the reason I say issue is because if someone does not understand what an individual in recovery is going through, it's real easy to put pressure on an individual, especially during this time of holiday. Imagine, for example, going to a party and then everybody in the party is kind of pushing you to have that one drink with me. It'll be this one time, just have a drink. It's a celebration. to someone in recovery, that's very, very detrimental, and it's a huge trigger. I like to say that, someone in recovery, their specific substance, it's like eating a bag of chips. You just can't open a bag of chips and have one. You have to have multiple. And people need to understand that. And what we need to do is accept education, offer education, and make sure that the family is aware of what's going on and participate in someone's recovery. I know it's easier said than done, but I'm sure that we could all work towards that.
Right, and I think it's a great way to put in it, Omar. Evelyn, let's talk about the stigmas there are definitely, and what about the stigmas on addiction and getting treatment? How might that affect someone in recovery within the Latino community?
Yeah, stigma is one of the biggest issues, I think, just in general when it comes to substance use population. Especially with things like alcohol use disorder, just because that's kind of what's going to be expected during the holidays. The thought that substance use is a moral issue, it's a lack of willpower, is so pertinent within the community that it's like, well, you could just stop if you really had enough willpower. It's not understood that it is a disease, something just like diabetes, something that can be treated, that needs either medication, therapy, exercise. It has multiple levels that need to be addressed. And if one does not stop or abstain from alcohol or other substances, it's looked at as kind of a moral failing on their part. And along with that, it's also seen as, along with mental health, it's not something that's discussed, it's not something that's talked about. And when somebody is struggling with these substances or struggling with these issues, oftentimes they don't seek treatment because they're afraid or concerned about what the family might say or their loved ones.
Speaking about the family, Craig, how might we help family members unlearn those stigmas?
Well, I think it's going to take a family effort. Like Evelyn said, getting treatment, getting help is needed, and like Omar said, education's huge. You can't do it alone. It's going to make it a lot more difficult if you try to do it alone. And I think you have to seek support if you need it, whether it be going to meetings, calling your sponsor, like I said earlier. Seek out treatment. Don't do it alone. Don't be embarrassed. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. If you look back at the stigma years ago, it was almost an embarrassing thing, mental health. Now let's get this fixed. Let's do it right. Let's get some support if you need it. Individually, you have to stay mindful of how you're feeling, know what your barriers are. And I don't mean like mathematically, I know that I shouldn't drink 6 beers, I'll only drink 3. I don't mean like that. I mean, like, know that if you go into a party where there might be triggers or people you used to use with a drink with, maybe leave a little earlier before they get there. So set some boundaries with yourself, seek out support, seek out treatment, and just don't do it alone.
Definitely. Omar, do you hear from patients that maybe some family members could be resistant to changing or adjusting their traditions to accommodate someone in recovery?
Absolutely, especially culturally. In the Latinx culture, it's real difficult to accept that a family member may have a substance use problem. Therefore, the education is very important. When the acceptance is not there, the support is not there. And if the support is not there, then failure is right around the corner. Like Craig said, communication is very important. And the help is there. The help is available. The only thing is that both the person in recovery and the family members do need to work together and do need to work consistently to make sure that they receive that education.
Speaking of help, Omar, speaking of help, sorry to cut you off, but what are some help that there might be available in Spanish for people that are in recovery right now?
Absolutely. So there are 12-step help groups that are offered both in Spanish and English. If the person in recovery is attending an organization, just like the ones that we belong to, we do offer family support both in Spanish and English. There's Al-Anon in Spanish and English. The support is there, and we're willing to, and we should be willing to provide as much information as possible without waiting for someone to reach out.
Definitely. And we have less than 20 seconds, Greg, but I want to ask you just real quick, how can people in recovery take care of themselves during this time?
Just pay attention. You know that like I had mentioned earlier, you might not be working out as much. You might not be speaking to your sponsor as much. Just be aware of what you can do to keep yourself aware of, problems you've had in the past, problems you're trying to mitigate, not go forward with, and just have a happy holidays and try to do the best you can. There's support out there, like Omar said and Evelyn said, there's support. Get support if you're having a little bit of trouble.
Definitely. Well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Thank you, Omar Corro, Greg Dara, and Evelyn Delgado. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Up next, Joanna Hernandez talks with a local digital creator who's making waves on social media. Stay with us.
The social media platform TikTok is a space you can find all sorts of content. And for some social media influencers, a viral video often leads to a big platform. Earlier this week, we caught up with a digital creator who goes by the name Chris Dolo. And he's been able to make a name for himself by reviewing food. We met him at Hangry's, a restaurant in the Belmont-Cragen neighborhood that became more than just a spot to eat. Take a look. What made you want to come into this restaurant or even start doing videos?
So I've always had the idea, always wanted to vlog me, going to different restaurants, trying out different cultures, foods. So when I already had the platform, I was already on TikTok. I think I already had around 100,000 followers at the time. I was driving down Fullerton and we happened to stop at Hangry's. I was, for some reason, sitting in the car for a second, just gathering myself, and my girlfriend was like, "Why don't you record your first video here with the food review?" So that's what we did. We came in, we looked at what we liked on the menu, and what I got was a Philly cheesesteak with some cheese fries, and what you have in your hand is a horchata slushie. And with that combo, I guess that's what caught everybody's eye. The next day I wake up, it had like over 100,000 views.
And you've been doing this for a while now.
I'm going on 3 years now.
Going on 3 years.
Yeah.
And going back to that first video that you did here, how has that been for you, reflecting back, going back and thinking about it?
It's like doing something unself-consciously, like just doing it and not knowing what the outcome is gonna be. Because I was just doing it for fun, and now I've made a whole complete 180 on my life, and it's now my career.
And Chris Dolo joins us now. Thank you for being here, Chris. Now, I gotta ask you, you've been doing this for about 3 years. What were you doing before TikTok?
So prior to TikTok and everything that's happening now, believe it or not, it still has to do with food. I was actually door dashing, delivering people's food. So I'll drive all day, smelling all this delicious food and not being able to eat it, but delivering it to the people. And some of those spots actually ended up going back to review that I found from DoorDash.
So when you started doing DoorDash, you were like, maybe I could make some content with doing food reviews.
No, it just, it came later on. I just did DoorDash. I thought back to the DoorDash when I started doing the food reviews, and I remembered like some of the spots that would catch my eye or catch my nose when I'm sniffing some of the great foods that I'm delivering.
You never thought you were gonna be here now?
I would never have thought, no.
With 1.7 million followers.
Yeah, and
Wow.
strong.
Wow. Now, it seems that most of the restaurants that you go and visit are small businesses. Is there a reason behind that?
So there's a big reason. When I go on like Instagram or TikTok, before me doing the videos, I would see other videos of people doing like food reviews. But what I noticed is that they would go to like downtown or like the more corporate restaurants, the more restaurants that necessarily don't need the publicity. So I thought like, yo, there's a lot of mom and pop restaurants all over Chicago, not just one neighborhood. They have different cultures, and I felt like they were the ones that deserved it. So I just stuck to that, and now I just go trying all different types of mom and pop shops all around the city.
So you really try to focus on trying to find these small, like you mentioned, small and mom and pop shops of people of color.
Correct, yeah. It's a blessing, you know, to be able to provide the platform to them, because they really work all day, all night on their recipes, on their marketing. Some of them don't even market the restaurant, so it's glad where I could come in and help them on that.
What's something that you would say you've learned stopping by at these restaurants and talking to the owners?
Every restaurant has its own story, you know. Some of them came from a different country. Some of them grew up here their whole life. Some of them have 10 restaurants. Some of them it's their new restaurant. And it's just dope to hear different stories and some of the success stories that some of these restaurants have.
Now, I want to play a clip from one of the owners of Hangry's we got a chance to visit that we previously saw. And I want you to hear what he had to say about when he first saw the viral video you made of his restaurant.
Let's hear it.
When he came out, it just started booming. Like, we started selling out of Phillies. We had a couple of days where we had to close in early just because we were doing so good. And everybody kept ordering the same thing. They would order the horchata slushy, or they would order the Philly cheese with the cheese fries. So we knew that happened. Family members sent it to us.
I have to say that horchata slushy was so good. I'm still like literally thinking about it. Does it surprise you the power of social media?
At the time, I did not know the power that social media had. And now that I look at it, it's the new way of we're the new commercials. I feel like billboards, radio stations, they don't really work with the marketing nowadays. I feel like everything's more visual now.
When did you start seeing that when you went and started making these videos that it could be life-changing for someone?
After literally the first one, when I did the first restaurant, which was Hangry's, I want to say I went back like a couple weeks later, and it only had been a couple weeks. I ordered food. Like I said, after I went that first time, I became a regular. So I went back, I ordered my food, and I didn't even know if they saw the video or not. And when I get home, my bag felt heavier, and they had wrote me a thank you letter, like thanking me for the video and how I blew up the restaurant up on social media. So I feel like that was when I knew.
And I know recently you also went to this Mexican restaurant. Someone had posted something on TikTok saying it was a family member that worked there, saying that no one's coming to their mom's restaurant. You went, and I feel like hours later there was over like a 2-hour wait.
Yeah, so it was a daughter actually who posted the video of her mother just waiting, and the caption titled, you know, "My mom patiently waiting for people to come in." So I got tagged in the video actually over 1,000 times. And like I said, I love to support mom and pop shops. And usually when I see these stories, it's not in Illinois. And it turned out to be in Glenview, Illinois. And I headed over. It was the restaurant's Taco Bell Joys.
Yeah.
And I was there. They were happy to see me there. They actually know who I was. I ordered the food. I made a video, and then just hours later, I think the news pulled up, and I think it was like a 2-hour wait. And it started off with just the mom and the daughter in the beginning, and by the end of the night, their whole family and came to like support and help them.
That's insane. Now I only have time for one other question, but I do want to ask, you know, this career that you have now on social media has led you to have sponsorship. You have mentioned that, and now you have opened your own marketing, AO Chicago. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so doing the social media and like the food reviews for over like 2 years, I noticed that when I would go to these restaurants, not a lot of them had social medias, or they did, or they just didn't utilize it. So I thought, what can I do to utilize this? And I thought, I've been doing this for 2 years. I know what works, what doesn't. So I started a company where we take restaurants and we grow their social media presence on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, creating content in the new way that content's being created.
And now this is your full-time job.
Full-time.
Now, final, what is your tag when you start your videos? Because I love it.
It's AO Chicago.
Well, thank you, Chris, for joining us. Our thanks to Chris Dolo. And now, Alex, we toss it back to you.
Joanna, thank you so much. Such a great story, right? So when you have a project like that, just do it, you know? You might up just being successful just like him. Pablo Serrano is one of Chicago's most prolific muralists. In 2022, he completed 4 towering artworks all over the city. We met up with Serrano at a 2-sided mural on a real estate office in West Elson, where he talked about what making a home for public art in Chicago can do for its people.
Art is responding to life and to the things that we're going through, and fundamental questions that go to where have we been, where are we at, where are we going? Muralism and public art here in Chicago has the same obligation and the opportunity to create a Chicago identity, right? Who are we? Where have we been? Where are we going, right? What's the challenge? What are we all responding to? This is Su Familia Real Estate, owned by the Flores family. that just recently celebrated 25 years, and this mural was commissioned to celebrate that history. The title of it is Hope, the Journey Together Towards the Future. It features a couple of different elements that are central to what I think is a shared goal of home when you establish home, right? Whether it's your apartment or you buy your first home, that you're thinking about your kids, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about your community, your neighbors, the city, and that this is where you're gonna be. Not just be, but you're raising your family and you're engaged, you're part of this. I was blessed to grow up in Pilsen that has this amazing, rich, cultural history of public art, right? Artists like Marco Raya, Hector Duarte, Romero, Castillo, all of these giants that paved the way for this ongoing conversation that's happening about Mexican-American identity, right, in relationship to American identity, right, as a whole. But what's important to understand is that they're standing on the shoulders of other muralists, other artists, and it's this long continuity. Chicago's challenge is transcending the borders that are in our city, right, and connecting what is disconnected. I think public art can be of tremendous service to that.
As we mentioned, Serrano completed 3 other murals this year. You'll see more of 2 of them at the end of the show. Well, in Mexico, 1 or 2 days just aren't enough to celebrate the holiday season. There, the traditional Christmas posadas are 9 days long. And the parties, well, they keep going well into the new year. In Little Village, the Open Center for the Arts wants all of Chicago to get a taste of Mexico's most beloved holiday traditions, starting just days before Christmas.
There's 3 events that happen in the winter in Mexico, which is the Posadas, the Rosca de Reyes, and the Candelaria. And the Posada begins with, it's a 9-day celebration. Here, all we do is 1 day. The community comes together. They walk around the neighborhood. They'll go to a few houses in the neighborhood that people that already said it's okay to come in. You know, I'll be part of this. And they'll go, they'll get maybe a drink or something, and then they'll come here, and here's where we actually do the whole celebration, where we will have food. We'll have some tamales, we'll have pozole, we have piñatas, and then we also added art workshops. So the whole lower level will have a whole setup for art workshops. For the Rosca de Reyes, it is a huge, this year it's going to be an 8-foot rosca. And we invite all the community to come and cut a piece of it. The final event is La Candelaria, which is candlelight. It's just a celebration where you just come gather and have a feast together. This is our 5th year that we have done this. It is open to anyone that would like to join us to celebrate these traditional Mexican events. All these beautiful things that are created, from the piñatas to the food to all the activities that we're going to be doing to the singing, that is art. And that's why it's like, well, we got to keep it going.
The Open Center for the Arts Posada takes place on the evening of Thursday, December 22nd. It's followed by Rosca de Reyes on January 6th and La Candelaria on February 3rd. You'll find more information on that on our website. Well, before we leave tonight, the nature organization Open Lands has put out a call for volunteers to help children's interest in the world and the natural world take flight. Especially, they're hoping to find more Latino and Spanish-speaking volunteers to lead the Birds in My Neighborhood program, which educates kids on native birds through in-school lessons and field trips.
The Birds in My Neighborhood program is a volunteer-run program with a simple purpose: to have kids open their eyes to nature. And we use birds or as little ambassadors to nature that are just everywhere. And so we are looking for Latin and Spanish speaking and or, right? It doesn't always go together, and or folks, because we really want children to see people excited about nature and who are guiding them through this exploration and discovery, who look like them and sound like them. Because you don't have to have birding experience to be a volunteer, and we'll train them, and so they'll also learn a lot along the way themselves.
Great program. Well, applications for volunteers are being accepted through December 30th. You'll find more on that on our website as well. That's going to be our show for tonight. Be sure to check our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And a reminder, Chicago Tonight Latino Voices and Chicago Tonight Black Voices will be off for the holidays. Catch us again in the new year. Don't forget also to tune in to Noticias Univision Chicago every weekday morning. I'll be waiting for you. And now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Latino Voices, I'm Alex Hernandez. Thank you for joining us tonight. Buenas noches.
Closed captioning is made possible in part by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, wishing all a happy and healthy holiday season.